Hi, Dr. Soloria here with you as we go through reality therapy, feminist theory, and postmodern approaches in our theories of counseling, psychotherapy, and personality. Hopefully, in this discussion, we'll look at Glasser's choice theory and reality therapy concepts, clarify the influences that perspectives of reality, feminist, and postmodern approaches have on counseling, and identify some key components of these three theories. So as we look at Glasser and the choice theory and his concept of humans are internally motivated. So they have basic needs, 5 basic needs that he talks about: that survival and self-preservation, super important, love and belonging to each other, and that community sense, and freedom, independence, as well as fun. So Glasser also had that approach of we shouldn't lean so heavy on diagnoses unless it's for insurance. And his focus is more of like, this is about that person, what's going on for them in terms of these internal motivators. When we look at reality therapy, it provides therapy that encourages the client to take control of their life. So when you go back, I'll go back for a second to these internally motivated needs. So we're moving towards the client being encouraged to take control. That the focus is still in the present. We haven't gone back in a while as far as our theories go. We're right here in the present again with another therapeutic approach. And then also looking at transference. So we've heard this term a few times. We would go all the way back to Freud hearing the term transference because it is important. As we're sitting there with a client and you're reminding them of somebody and they start projecting that thought, feeling, whether positive or negative, onto you as the therapist, we need to be able to recognize that, as I stated in the session about Freud and psychoanalytic, but also with reality therapy, we're looking at how we're teaching the client to relate to others differently. So not always projecting that onto other people, whether it's us as their therapist or they're around other people, we're helping them to relate to others in a safer way of just staying right there with themselves and not getting lost in that, this clerk at a store reminding me of somebody so they don't like me. That's that kind of transference, and that person has nothing to do with that. Also, we're going to emphasize the responsibility and their choice for the client to be in control of their behaviors and their choices. So as they're focusing on their therapeutic experience, we're bringing back to light of this is yours. This is what's going on for you. You're in control of this. And even there are times you'll hear that phrase of you're the expert of you. And that's what that reality therapy is talking about. The role of the counselor. So we as the counselors be supportive, but directive. So be very, very clear. If you see that transference, you would state that. And creating an environment that provides change. So where that sometimes could probably look a little confrontational because you were kind of pushing in on, hey, you're back in control of this. This is yours. Let's give it back to you. Instead of it being kind of the counselor's interpretation and helping them to see something, we want to bring it back, be very directive, but we're supportive. Hopefully kindness comes out, right? The WDEP system or strategies for change. So that therapist's function or the role in this system is, asking that client, what is it that you most want to change for your life? What do you want in your life? What are you not getting out of your life? What are you doing to make those changes happen? And then stepping back and looking at evaluating and planning ahead to how to make these changes, how to implement these changes. And we have to be careful there too, because they may get to that space where like, well, what do you think I should do? That wouldn't be in reality therapy. We're not going to lean back to telling them what we think they should do. And most processes we're not going to tell them. We don't give advice. We're not advising them, but we're not coaches. We're not advisors. We're there to create a very safe environment where no other environment that they've been in may have been safe. So they may be sharing a lot of stuff and not getting a lot at times in the therapeutic process because we're creating a supportive, safe environment. And in reality, going back to reality therapy, is we may direct some of those things of like, hey, you said you wanted to do this. Have you made plans for how are you evaluating these plans? What have you implemented to make this happen? So we're moving to, quickly, I guess, feminist theory, and that approach being social, cultural, political, and just considering multiple, including understanding or considering multiple oppressions, powers, privileges, or even multicultural competencies. So we're really looking broadly in feminist theory and recognizing the impact of societal structures, looking at that empowerment and advocating for your client, and keeping in mind in a use of feminist therapies, we're going to be pretty egalitarian with our client. We can empower them and advocate for them, but we're not better than them. We're just coming in, we're equals, we're trained, but we're equals with them and kind of taking that stance. In terms of a little bit of background with feminist therapy, it did originate therapy for women by women, but that has moved and become very diverse. So the name may be misleading in terms, it just has the same name. It is definitely an integrated, multicultural, and social conceptualizing approach. So take some time to look into what that means more than the name if you've never heard of it before, so that you're not stuck on it just being called feminist therapy. So postmodern concepts we're looking at, and I'll go over this and then we'll move to a little more in depth. Narrative and solution-focused brief therapy, emphasis of language, meaning making, subject matter experiences, and then deconstructing dominant discourse. So in narrative therapy, the people are not the problem. The problem is the problem. So those externalized conversations, we've heard the term, that's my narrative. So we're reauthoring those life stories. We have using therapeutic documents. He's going to say documentation. So looking at what's going on, what's the narrative here, not to use the term in the term, but I'm not just this, everything isn't the problem. Let's what is the issue at hand, and not just projecting it. Well, that happened because that person, well, what is the issue? So if the issue is everywhere I go, I don't feel heard or seen, there's the issue. It's not because this person doesn't like me and I feel unheard and unseen. It's the problem with the problem. And having those externalized conversations, helping them to bring that back and rewriting that story for themselves, of going back to a time maybe even that they felt unheard, unseen, and helping them to rewrite and advocating for them. How do I feel seen and heard? What makes me feel that way, so that I'm not just walking around thinking I don't feel it. What helps me to feel that way? And then moving into a more therapeutic stance with that. Solution focused is that solution focus and not on the problems. The miracle question. So everybody loves this question. I hear it often. It is great. So if you could do anything in your life, what would that be? Scaling. So the use of scaling in solution focus. So on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate this? And building strengths and exceptions. It's very short term. It's very oriented, like some of the other modalities that we've talked about. So we're looking at I have a problem. How do I create a solution? And sometimes that miracle question is just beautiful and that just works. So it's like, what would you do if you could do anything? I actually used to have a sign in my office that said, could I do if I wasn't afraid? And that would resonate, even though it was just a piece of paper on the wall. People were like, oh, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? So you're building on their strengths. Again, we're advocating for them. What do they do well? If they weren't afraid, what could they do well? And sometimes they feel very frozen. So if that fear comes out of anxiety and moving towards what is the solution to this, and not just let's keep focusing on the fear and anxiety, right? Again, this is going to be short term. It's not this ongoing. It's pretty brief. And you might find that in certain circumstances where this is the best modality to use because you're not going to get a lot of time with these people. And it can be difficult. I will say this can be difficult if you have a solution-focused mindset and then you're in a pretty typical counseling and you don't know how to stretch it out to keep, if you've been given 8 sessions and are like, oh, I could do this in 2, I wouldn't recommend that. But keep that in mind. Like how do I help myself process through this not being everything so brief and short? What are we doing? We are continuing to read. You don't have much more to read in this particular course, so you're doing good. Discussion questions are starting to wrap up, and hopefully you're working on that paper and understanding, devising your own philosophy and your thoughts about all of these theories, and keep up the good work. Good job.